Now, I really am delighted this evening to be joined by one of the real experts on opinion polling, the Professor of Politics at Kent University, Matt Goodwin. Matt, thanks so much for coming on. Can you try and enlighten us as to how people can end up preferring a non-existent policy on immigration to one that, even if it isn't working, at least is identifiable and explicable?
Well, the short answer is millions of people out there don't like the current policy on migration. They are blaming the Conservative Party both for record levels of legal migration. We saw those numbers reach 600,000 in recent months, but they're also blaming the Conservatives for what they see as out of control, illegal migration on the southern border. So when you look at this issue overall, Jacob, one of the remarkable things in British politics today is when you say to voters, who do you trust to manage migration? It isn't just that Labour's ahead of the Conservatives. It's that the most popular answer is actually none of them. I don't know who to trust on immigration, say many voters. And this, to me, is a really fragile place for British politics to be when we know many voters care a great deal about this issue, also feel that nobody is really in control of it.
And so is that an opportunity for Rishi Sunak to set out what he can do, to set out his stall and appeal to those voters? Or is it an opportunity for another party could come forward and have clear views? Or is it worse than both of those, that actually people are completely disillusioned and turned off from politics, and it'll be very hard to win them back?
Well, I certainly think it's a lot of the latter, Jacob. I think millions of people are just disillusioned with both left and right on migration. Many voters out there watching this show do not want Britain to be a country of mass migration. And of course, much of this has taken place first under New Labour in the 2000s, and then under a succession of Conservative governments in the 2010s. It was the Conservative Party, of course, which promised to lower overall migration. Boris Johnson in 2019 campaigned to lower migration and to regain control of Britain's borders. And that clearly, very visibly, has not happened over the last 4 years or so. So my concern about British politics today is that unless somebody can get their arms around this issue, unless somebody can lower the overall level and slow the pace of change in this country, then we are going to have a new populist party like the French and the Italians and the Germans. We are going to have perhaps a more divisive, polarized politics, because clearly both of the mainstream parties have failed on this issue of immigration.
And do you think they've failed because there are structures that make it very difficult to do it, such as the European Convention on Human Rights? Or is it actually that there is an elite in this country who don't really want to tackle migration, that they think for economic reasons or even for societal reasons that migration is a good thing, even if their voters don't, and that therefore the structures that are in place continue to allow it to grow?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of all of that, Jacob. I think if you look at the general view in Westminster among the political elite and perhaps a wider cultural and media elite, it is very much that immigration is positive, it is a good thing, and that it should not be questioned. But if you poll voters out there in the country, as I do every week, if you sit in focus groups with voters out there in the country, as I do every week, they will tell you very clearly that they feel that this economy, which is built around cheap labour, which is built around importing hundreds of thousands of workers who, by the way, are not often high skilled, as the government promised they would be, is not working for average British workers. And the evidence on this, Jacob, is very, very clear. If you look at the study.
I absolutely agree with you, and I agree with you very strongly on how pervasive it is that in my own constituency, going round in the summer, people were constantly mentioning migration to me as the big issue. I wish we had longer. I hope you'll come back on again for a longer conversation. You're so well informed on all this, and it's so valuable to have you. Thanks so much, Matt.